What is value insulation? And can I have players on my Dynasty team? Do I want players on my team that are value insulated? We're going to talk about 8 guys today that are currently the most value insulated players in Dynasty Fantasy Football. What is value insulation? Value insulation simply means you can do jack diddly squat and your value is not going to be changing much in the ranks of fantasy football. This can be a good thing. Let's look at Jayden Daniels, right? Jayden Daniels is the prime case example of what value insulation really means. If we look at Jayden Daniels' career average, everybody remembers the stellar rookie season, 52.4 yards per game on the ground. His rushing touchdown rate honestly wasn't even that good either on the ground. It was just an insanely high yards per game metric on the ground. Okay, follows it up, 2025. Everyone thinks Jayden Daniels, man, this guy, I was seeing Jayden Daniels go top 3 before Josh Allen, before Lamar Jackson in 2025 startup dynasty drafts. Kind of ridiculous, right? But anyway, Jayden Daniels, 16 points per game in 2025 and banged up. Now, a lot of people can say that 16 points per game was because he was banged up. He came out and dropped 2 20-point per game for the first 2 weeks of 2025. I get it, but still, it was a disappointing season. Now, on the outs of that disappointing season, Jayden Daniels is still ranked as a top 8 Dynasty Fantasy Football asset. That is value insulation. You have a young player who showed that he can be somebody that averages 50 rushing yards per game. Nobody else can really do that. And he's so young that this is a good asset to hold. So his price didn't change much. But value insulation does not last forever, as we're going to talk about today. If Jayden Daniels has another bad season in 2026, I think we see him lose a lot more value insulation and drop down to like this C tier or even like beyond 20th in rank, because injury-prone quarterbacks is a thing. Ever heard of RG3? Now, I'm not saying that's Jayden Daniels, but that's the first prime case example of value insulation. So we have 8 total names to talk about today. Jayden Daniels is one of them. He's a prime example. Let's get into some of the rest. Before we get into the rest, make sure you smash that like and subscribe. We upgraded the mic setup. Hopefully the audio quality is sounding good. Let me know in the comments. Join the Patreon. Join as a free member too if you want. Join the Discord. Drop your trade questions. We'll figure it all out for you. Appreciate every single one of y'all. So here we go. Let's talk about a guy like Ladd McConkey. Because listen, we're going to talk about guys that have value insulation. 8 of them, sure. What about guys that don't have value insulation? Let's see some examples of that. Ladd McConkey. Now, I'm the sucker that in my Dynasty startup in 2025, I'm sitting there like pick 18, Drake London or Ladd McConkey. I'm like, man, Drake London's good, but I think that because Penix is a bum, I'm going to have to go with Ladd McConkey. Now, obviously, that was the wrong decision because you can see Ladd McConkey is now 41st in rank. So with one bad year for Ladd, keep in mind, Ladd had that good rookie season. People expect year 2 breakouts from wide receivers. Ladd went from 15 points per game rookie year to 11 points per game in 2025. Had nothing to do with injuries. It was truly, he just wasn't really the same receiver. The yards per game, highly down. His targets were still pretty similar. He just wasn't as efficient. Maybe the throws weren't as good. His average yards per target might not have been the same. Look at that. 3 yards per target less from Mr. Herbert. But what we're looking at here is you have a young player, similar to the Jayden Daniels situation. The value insulation on Ladd, it was thin. Insulated is the name of the game, right? Thin insulation. So Ladd McConkey dropped a whole 20-something spots. Another example of not much, if not at all, value insulation is Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta, I actually have him as a buy target. Again, we have a huge 200-person buy, hold, sell list for the Patreon. Sam Laporta, this guy prints double-digit point per game seasons. Obviously, he had the stellar rookie season. He was probably ranked around 50th or higher. Sam Laporta is the future. Then you have a poor season in 2024, but not terrible. Still tight end 9. 2025, he's still on pace to be tight end 8. Okay, but he deals with the injuries, and he kind of fell off the face of the earth. I think everyone is forgetting about Sam Laporta due to his injury in 2025. And you can see he dropped in the rankings accordingly. He's now 90th in rank. People would rather have Matthew Stafford, a retiring quarterback, than Sam Laporta. Seems a little fishy in my eyes. So those are 2 guys that didn't have value insulation. Let's get into the rest that do. And you can ask yourself, do you want to have these guys? So Jayden Daniels was number 1. Number 2 is CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is number 10th in the rankings. And a lot of the guys that have this insulation are truly just there because of their name. If you played sports growing up, you can think in your head most likely of somebody that was a player with hype, but the production may not have matched it up. Some people just have that name recognition, that, oh man, like when you think of this person's name, you're like, man, this guy has it. But that does not necessarily mean that they're producing for fantasy football championships. CeeDee Lamb obviously had an insane 3-season run, peaked by 2023 wide receiver 1 season. He's attached to Dak Prescott, and when Dak Prescott is healthy, don't forget Dak was banged up in 2024 and he still was the wide receiver 8. But when Dak is healthy, you expect CeeDee to produce. They brought in Pickens, and if Pickens re-signs with Dallas, I don't see, I don't know. I think that CeeDee Lamb can still be around 17, 18 points per game, but I'd be surprised if we see him back up here at that wide receiver 1 finish. He's now 27 years old. He's technically still in his prime. You play in 3-year outlooks and dynasties, what everyone says, so you're not really too worried about age unless you're me and you're planning ahead. I like selling assets when they're at their highest in value. We've seen CeeDee Lamb get banged up a little bit in back-to-back seasons. Now, hip drop tackles, whatever you want to call it, kind of unlucky. It's not like, oh, he's tearing his ACL or tearing his hamstring. But with that said, CeeDee Lamb is someone that did not produce this last season in 2025. His value has not changed at all. So with value-insulated players, Jaden Daniels, CeeDee Lamb, I do think that there's a world where both of these players, there's a chance that they just cliff right off. I think that CeeDee Lamb especially is currently at the highest value for Dynasty we're going to see him at, and every single minute that you hold him, it's just a chance for him to keep going down. Now, CeeDee, he does produce, like his bad season, you're still getting 15, 16 points per game. So I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying he's very value insulated, and at least he has been historically. His price has not really changed coming off of that bad season. Now, usually it takes a second bad season for some of these super value insulated players, and that's when the insulation goes away and they start plummeting in the ranks, aka Jaden Daniels is a very risky hold right now at price. Name number 3 is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is number 12th in the rankings, and really this one is extremely confusing to me, especially if you are in a 4-point pass and touchdown format, and this guy gives you absolutely no rushing upside. If we take a look at his career average, man, like his rushing yards per game is not good. He averages 7, 8 rushing yards per game. That's absolutely nothing in terms of, rushing production. And then if we look at his passing touchdown rate, that's what keeps him high. 2.4 passing touchdowns per game. That is elite. But what are you talking about with the points per game? Look at the points per game right here. 19 points per game in 2025, 22 in 2024. And he's around 20 points per game when healthy. It's good. It's definitely good. You're talking about top 6 quarterback finish right there in points per game. Then you add on the injury history. This guy is 29 years old. He's been talking about, the word of retirement has already been attached to him. I don't know what's going on with that. Like, don't buy into it. But 29 years old with an injury history. Are you scared? Because I am. Now, the reason I'm saying he's very value insulated, prime example of somebody that just has that name, Joe Burrow. He's in the locker room with the cigar. 12th overall. Let's look at number 28th in the rankings, Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, 19 points per game in his first rookie season, and that's including these terrible games right here. Is it? It might be. I'm not sure. But what you can check is over the back half of the season, Jackson Dart was over 20 points per game. So in his rookie year, in my books, Jackson Dart, who's 22, who's 7 years younger, and doesn't have that injury history. Now, the concussion history is a bit of a different story, right? But Jackson Dart, I'm not saying he's going to be better than Joe Burrow as a quarterback, but I'm saying that Jackson Dart averaged 1 rushing touchdown every 3 out of 4 games, and Jackson Dart gave you 40 rushing yards per game, whereas Joe Burrow has never hit that same ceiling in a total season as the young 22-year-old that's done it. So that's why Joe Burrow, very, very value insulated. Honestly, I don't see this value insulation going away nearly as fast as Daniels or CeeDee Lamb's could. So Joe Burrow is someone that is value insulated. This is just a matter of capitalizing on the value that isn't aligning with the production. Like if you can trade Burrow for Dart and then get something on top of it, you're putting yourself in a good spot. Let's talk about Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers, college, nagging toe injury is what they're calling it. Misses some time in 24 and then misses a lot of time with a gruesome injury in 2025. Now he's a good receiver, one of the best rookie wide receiver seasons of all time, 18 points per game. Congrats. 2025, he started off a little bit slow. Let's check the game log. 12 points in his first week, almost 40. A little slow. How about that? Bam, 40. And then weeks 3, weeks 4, absolutely nothing. He's slowed down in a big bit. Now, how's he going to play with Jackson Dart? That's going to be something we have to see. This was kind of coinciding with Jackson Dart's first couple of starts. So this is a kind of an asterisk. We don't know how Nabers and Dart's connection is going to be. I'd imagine it can't be worse. Like Jackson Dart returning Wan'Dale Robinson to a serve as a wide receiver. So when Nabers is healthy, man, I am actually excited for him. I do think this is not necessarily the worst ranking. But when you see a dynasty asset like this that does not plummet in value, that's the peak of value insulation. He's 23 years old, and we saw an 18 point per game season. Like I said, it usually takes 2 or 3. Like in this case, I think even if Nabers comes out in 2026 and averages 14, 15 points per game, maybe he has another injury, I don't really see him dropping past number 28 in the rankings. So I think that is still decent value insulation. But if we saw a second bad season in a row in 2027, that's when sayonara Nabers, then you start dropping heavily in the rankings, even though he's 23 years old. So Nabers, it's a good dynasty asset to be holding on to, or someone to capitalize on the value. Because I'm just saying, I don't think we're going to see him drop much in value anytime soon. Patrick Mahomes, this is truly name recognition, but Mahomes does have some rushing upside that you can potentially tap into in the future. Now, this is what's very concerning. I actually have Mahomes in my main dynasty league, and I was enjoying the 30 rushing yards per game. I was enjoying a career high touchdown rate on the ground of 0.4 rushing touchdowns per game. He was a worse passer in 2025 in terms of touchdown rate on the through the air, but the rushing upside really helped that. He averaged 20 points per game. He had down years, back-to-back years, 23, 24, bam, 17 points per game. Not good. Mahomes coming off of the gruesome injury. Sure, he's now attached to Eric Bieniemy, like the new OC. That's great. I'm excited for that. Are they really going to send Mahomes out there on bootlegs and then scramble? Now, are they going to be able to control Mahomes and tell him not to scramble? That's a whole different story. I am just worried that we're going to see Mahomes back to this rushing upside here, closer to 19, 20, 15 rushing yards per game rather than 30, especially coming off of the injury. I mean, we're going to see Mahomes not even play potentially the first half of 2026. So this is a worrisome situation, but you can see that even with this gruesome injury, and even with like comparable, not great comparable rushing upside to some of the other higher options like Lamar or Jackson Dart, Mahomes still is in this B tier. Mahomes is going to stay in this B tier. He's a 30-year-old quarterback, but we all expect Mahomes to play another 7 years, right? So this is truly a stable dynasty asset that I don't see dropping in value much. And this is a rare instance where even though the production might not be there, especially in the first half of this 2026 season, I actually think that you could hold on to Mahomes. And because we know if he's playing 7 more years, I'm betting that there's a good chance that we see him have another great season, great stretch of games, win a Super Bowl, whatever. And I think that we're going to see Mahomes potentially jump in value higher than where he currently is, coming off of a gruesome injury. So I'm fine holding on to Mahomes. Nico Collins is a guy that everyone knows what he is. He's 27 years old. I'm a little bit worried about age because of the injury history. Nico Collins never plays a full season. This Texans O-line, I think, is hurting this Texans offense and kind of impacting CJ Stroud's ability to be a great quarterback, kind of resulting in some volatility here for Nico Collins. If we take a look, Nico Collins has a good point per game average, but there's hills and valleys. There's highs and lows. 24 points one week, 8 points the next week. That is volatile. I want somebody that's more stable. I'd rather have 15 points per game every single week rather than hills and valleys. And factor in the injury history, that's scary. His targets were still pretty good per game, but his receiving efficiency in terms of the amount of balls he was bringing in was lower. His snap rate was higher, which is good, especially when you have Higgins, Noel, and Kirk. Those guys were basically non-factors. When Collins is healthy, he's out there on the field. Collins can't stay healthy. He's still ranked 25th overall in these Flock Fantasy rankings. That's very, very high for a receiver that just had a down season. That's what we're talking about, right? Back-to-back good seasons. His value didn't change much coming off of his worst season of 3. Personally, if I had Nico Collins, I am worried about this. I think his value insulation is thin now. Again, second year of having if he has a bad 2026, we're going to see him drop down to the 40s. So I'm fine looking to move him right now before that value insulation wears off. Same thing here with Garrett Wilson, who is younger, doesn't have the same injury history, coming off his first ever big injury year. But really, can you blame him? I don't want to play for the New York Jets either when Tyrod Taylor's out there throwing passes. Who's the other bum? They had Mason Miller. I mean, obviously the Athletics closer. I don't know. Brady Miller. You guys know that one bum quarterback that was in there. Brady Cook. That was in there for a couple of weeks, right? Mason Miller. That's funny. But you can see Garrett Wilson, he's just been consistently mid. 12, 12, 14, 14. He's never finished as a top 20 ranked wide receiver. And yet, he's ranked number 29th. Make the math make sense here. This truly is, the production does not match with the rank or the hype. Now, obviously, he is a skilled receiver. And you can say, listen, when he gets a better quarterback, are you going to go play quarterback for the Jets? Because, listen, we just had Dante Moore not declare. The Jets ain't getting a quarterback anytime soon. Like, the quarterback, who are they going to get? Kirk Cousins? Like, I just don't see it here with Garrett Wilson. I mean, obviously, there's scenarios where he is going to improve his value. But I'm just saying, like, his value is still so high because of that value insulation. Sayonara, let's get rid of him. Final name of the video, still here in the 20s, and you would expect that. Like, if you have someone that's value insulated, you would think that they're obviously going to be pretty highly ranked. Mr. Herbert, 28 years old. It's pretty young for a quarterback. Now, look at this. This guy is ranked higher than Jackson Dart, higher than Bo Nix, who is 25. And let's just go to the overall quarterback rankings. I honestly have no clue why Herbert is ranked this high. And this is the worst rank I've ever seen in my life. And it's the same on Keep Trade Cut. Ready? Career average. QB 15, QB 15, QB 15, QB 15. He's had 2 good years. They were in 2020 and 2021. You guys were getting masked up and you were staying inside because of COVID. That's how long ago this was, right? 22 points per game in his first 2 years. Amazing. Why? Because his touchdown passing rate was so high. He also had some rushing touchdowns as well in those first 2 seasons. His rushing touchdown rate is absolutely non-existent. His rushing yard per game rate was actually pretty high, 31 yards per game, a career high in 2025. That's great, but he was still QB 15 because the passing touchdown rate was not as good. Now Herbert now has Mike McDaniels. That gets me excited. And, you know, with I'm not looking to move him necessarily because this is a good, stable quarterback option. His O-line has to improve. Mike McDaniels as the OC does excite me, but at some point, look at this. He's averaging 17 points per game. The value insulation has a very good chance to go away sometime soon. We have seen Herbert also be banged up with injuries in some of his seasons, probably because his O-line's out there trying to play and get him killed. Would you rather have Dart or Herbert? I would rather have Dart. It's not even close, and you can potentially get something on top of it. You know, I'd rather have a lot of these players around Herbert that are ranked lower. Actually, that's not even true. Like, would I rather have Herbert over Brock Purdy? Yes. Would I rather have Herbert over Lawrence? Yes. Herbert versus Knicks, that one's closer for me. I'd rather have Herbert actually than most of these guys below him. But if I was to go from Herbert to Tyler Shuck and then add somebody that's like another 30th and 50th ranked asset and piece on top of it, that's just a great move, man. Because Tyler Shuck, I'm not saying this guy's good. He's played 6 games. But in those 6 games, Tyler Shuck averaged 20 rushing yards per game, close to 300 passing yards per game. And the back half of the year, he was at 20 points per game. He's younger. Not necessarily the same height, not even close to it. I'm not saying he's going to be better than Herbert at all, but I'm talking about production. What actually wins you Dynasty weeks is points per game, and Herbert is QB 15. Not sure why he's ranked as number 25th overall, right? So that's what value insulation is. I hope that this video helped clear this up. 8 Dynasty assets never lose value. We also talked about McConkey. We talked about Scammell Porter, some guys that do lose value. But hopefully now you can evaluate your Dynasty roster in a way you're making the best moves. We're going to have the best buys, holds, and sells out here on YouTube. Appreciate it. So I want you all. See you in the next one.